Hello. Hello everyone. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Welcome in Clever and welcome in Copyright. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. It's nice to be back. If you guys didn't catch it, I was majestic walking. I try. It's important to hold yourself with confidence as you walk. The way I can walk is I grabbed the wrong thing. Is I can go like this. I can bounce up and down as I walk. Or I can step slowly. I can also go down. I can do that like magic trick. You know the thing where like they slowly go down the stairs. Like I'm going down the stairs. I'm just bending my knees right now each time I walk. And now I'm kind of leaning back. I'm very flexible. Okay. My okay, I can't get. Wait, I can get down. There we go. The last like couple of inches was a little difficult to bend my back. Try the elevator. Wait, no. Ah. Oh no. Wait a minute, hang on. Oh no. The elevator broke. It's broken. It's broken. Copyright. Call the mechanics. Call the people who fix the elevators. Well, I don't know who they are. Oh no. I'm stuck in the elevator. I can't get out. I'm gonna die. Have you guys ever seen those elevators? I don't even know where they are, but you see them every now and again. Beep boop beep. Calling 911. You see, I see them on Twitter every now and again. They're like opened elevators, and you just step into them as they go up and down. Here's the thing. I think if those were around in America, and it seems everyone agrees, there would be at least 10 deaths a day. Somehow I feel like Americans probably might struggle a little bit with that. Average stream bit. I've been noticing this is happening recently. It's been saying that my average stream bitrate is unstable. It's too high. I'm gonna have to check soon about this, because I don't think there should be any issue on like your guys' end. I think I've been fine so far in terms of actual quality. So I think it's just a weird notification. Maybe something isn't right. I'll have to check my settings, but they hanged up on you. Oh no, copyright. That sounds about right. They don't care about helping. But I hope you're all having a very lovely day. It's St. Patrick's Day today, so happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. I went to a little parade, and it was nice. It was nice seeing all the different. It was nice seeing all the different communities and groups that were a part of it. You had the military, you had GA groups, or for those of you who don't know, GA or GAA is things like hurling and camogie and Gaelic football, kind of the national sports of Ireland. So they're often a big, strong part of any community, and they'll often be in the parades. Then you'll have random groups. You might have various veteran groups or musicians or youth groups, all that type of stuff, and it's very cool to see. And you'll just have like various communities or stuff. I'm doing good. I gotta go to sleep. I'm staying up until the book reading. I got you. Studying takes so long. I know that all too well, Clever. I was studying until about 5. I went to the parade. I got home at about 1ish, I want to say, and then I started studying until about 5. I made some decent progress. I'm gonna try and keep on top of things, and I think I should be okay with keeping on top of things. I'm almost at the end of my like studying period until it's until I have to do no more new things and it's all just revision and exam work and stuff. But we'll get through it. We'll get through it, and I'm very much planning on getting through that. And when that time comes up, I may have to take a week break or 2-week break from streaming, just to make sure. Maybe not 2 weeks, but like Well, actually, yeah, there would probably be the week break on the week of study beforehand, and then the actual week of exams. Uh, but then I'd just be relaxing, and hopefully everything will go well on those days. But if you guys didn't catch it, I did post it in the Discord. I really need to set up a thing that posts like, hey, if you like what you see, go join my Discord. I really need to set up something that does that every like 15 to 20 minutes in chat. Because I feel like people probably don't even realize I have it. Even when they do drop by. But I was. Oh, I am tired today. Oh my god. I was part of a little collab yesterday. Actually, kind of a big one with quite a few nice people. We were doing a voice acting of a visual novel or an otome game called Amnesia Memories, and it's a lot of fun. I'm going to be honest. I really enjoy because it's just riffing and like joking about like the silliness. But it was me, Ace P Caswell, Patchery. Oh, I can't remember how he changed his name recently. He used to be called Dojin Patchy, but now I think it's like Patchery something. I can't remember exactly what the second part is. But Patchy, Hespera, although she wasn't there this week, she was there 2 weeks ago, and then Karen, another VTuber. We're all VTubers, and then Renata, who you guys have seen sometimes in stream at times. She's made some very cool art. Amnesia: The Lost Dark Descent. I thought it was just The Dark Descent. But no, it wasn't. It wasn't Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I don't know. I've never played those games. The only time I think my only reaction or knowledge of those games is watching PewDiePie play them. Years and years ago, back before he was one of the most famous people in the world, I would say. I still call, well, I don't still call them, I do call them something different now, but I'm not going to explain what they are because it's kind of an insular family thing. But brofist, a brofist, that was always, that was part of my vocabulary for a while. I was a bro. I still am. I still watch his stuff from time to time. I'm really glad the route that he went down. He really seems to be living a fantastic life, and I'm happy for him. There's so many people that you hear that, like, a lot of YouTubers or Twitch streamers don't have happy endings a lot, and it's nice to see one of the biggest. He's not retired, but now he's so big he can just make whatever he wants. He's living over in Japan. He has a beautiful daughter with his wife. What's her name again? Maria? Oh my god, I can't believe. And Marzia, that's it, Marzia. I knew it was something M, but I couldn't remember because I haven't watched in a while. But Marzia, I think it's a daughter. I actually don't. For some reason it was in my mind, but he has a beautiful baby recently. And it's really sweet to see. How did I get onto that? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, the game we were playing, Amnesia Memories, an Otome game. I haven't played those games, but I kind of want to do it now just to play through on my own because I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of silliness. We got a bittersweet ending. We didn't get the best ending, but I'd like to do more collabs. They were actually, it was really a lot of fun. But I don't know what more I would do. Kind of hard to say. But I was tempted to do something themed today for St. Patrick's Day, but I wasn't. What's the word? I didn't plan anything. Mainly because I started watching another VTuber. Although I was watching her VOD, not the live video. But someone I found recently, and I was like, oh my god, I want to be like this person. They're really cool. And that is, hang on, let me pull up because I only just discovered them. That's a Cleo80. Cleo80. I think she's Australian maybe or something. Well, no, she is from Ireland. She's from the VOD that I watched of her, she explicitly said that she grew up in Ireland. She grew up in the north, but I'm guessing she moved to Australia, and that's kind of where she's what she picked up after a while. But she's I think a retired. I'm not too sure, or used to be anyway, an actual historian, a medievalist specifically, so knows way more about this type of stuff that I love. But she did a little kind of lecture, history lecture, about the Troubles in Ireland. Now I haven't gotten to watch the entire thing yet, but I did watch the first, about hour or so of it, where she was mainly just kind of talking about the background to that. And really, she went she went right back, and it was really funny. People were saying that she pulled a Putin. I'm not going to make any political comments, but you know the way how recently I think Putin and Tucker Carlson had an interview, and Putin, in his when he was explaining the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, he was like, "Oh, you have to go all the way back to like the 12th century." Well, when explaining the conflict of the Troubles, you do actually have to go back to the 12th century. Oh no, wait, is it? Yeah, I think it's the 12th century. Possibly even a little bit further. I mean, you could push stuff back ages. That's always the fun part of history. But going back to the Norman invasion, not even a Norman invasion, a little bit about the Viking, the initial Norman invasion, further Norman incursions, later rebellions and stuff, and just to try and give a kind of a background and explanation as to what the Troubles were, how they occurred in the first place, why they occurred in the first place, and then kind of I'm looking forward to getting into kind of the rest of her VOD. But Clio80, CLIO AITE. I retweeted her on Twitter, so really cool. It's kind of interesting to listen to you when you're talking about your life and things that are happening. I try and just ramble. I like to think that maybe people often say that Irish people have the gift of the gab. I'm not so sure how true that might be from me, but I've certainly known many people who are very, very good at that type of stuff. Many of them happen to be in sales, but I'm decent enough for being able to just keep spewing things out of my mouth. Thinking of getting into sword fights. Sword fights are fun. I have sword fought before, multiple times. They are quite fun. I would be careful though. You'll just stay at home. No way, clever. Don't go getting into actual sword fights. I once actually stabbed someone in the eye during a practice sword fight thing. Thankfully, it wasn't a steel one, because literally that person probably would have lost their eye, and it made it very clear why one needs to wear guards. I will say I didn't thrust forward. I kind of blocked. I did what's called an ox guard, which is where you hold the sword up, pointed at your opponent up by your head. And now we're talking about sword fights. Yeah, that's how conversations go. They cut towards me. I blocked, and because their momentum carried them into the tip, and it caught them. Where did it catch them? I think it caught them just on the inside of the eye, but I think just by luck, it kind of pushed them back. It didn't go in, it hit kind of like a bony part, and kind of went against their eye socket and pushed them back. I'm not even joking. I was whiter. I was white with fear at hurting someone that we're just trying to practice stuff. Thankfully, nothing bad came of it. A lot of bruising, but it was a very scary moment, I will say. But certainly crazy to see how effective even a hard plastic. It wasn't. It's like a fake longsword. It's effectively the similar balance and stuff, but it's a fake material. And then when we moved on to real, it kind of really emphasized why you had to wear all of the protection that I did when I used to do actual steel fighting. So yeah, I think it is very fun, the random conversations that you can suddenly flow into when streaming. But I think what I might do is, because it's been a little bit, is I might begin our reading now. I'm not too sure if we will finish completely today. I think I'm going to try to get to the end, because we only have about, how many pages do we have? We only have about a little bit over 20, so it's 27, 28, I think. Yes, Philip is waiting, and unfortunately, chapter 9 is titled The End of Philip. And like all great men, and I'm using the term great in the sense of genius, very, very skilled and accomplished men. Chapter 9 of the book is titled The End of Philip. And we just saw Philip faced handle a 1v4 against my future kids. For I'm sorry to tell you, Clever, but from my experience, the odd time we used to do kind of unfair, like handy. I can't say that term. I was going to say a term that used to be a wrestling thing, but I think that one might get me in trouble. I shoot for the stairs. I think there was some old transcript or manuscript that talked about sword fighting and said that, like, 1 is a test of skill, 2 versus 2, it's definitely, it's doable. 3, you're really starting to push your luck. And once it gets to 4 and beyond, the masters even just say, look, run. Unless you truly are a master. How many chapters are there? This is the last chapter. The end of Philip, because this is what this book is about. But when we last left off, Philip had faced off against the Athenians and the Thebans, and they had finally came to blows. After a lot of kind of jostling for position, attempting to take various areas, they came to blows in the Battle of Chaeronea, where Philip masterfully pulled them into a situation where, and Alexander especially played an important role in that battle, crushed them. Hello, Lancelot. You're once again tuning in from the pub, and I cannot hear any oral answers. That doesn't seem very, very good for reading, but an interpreter in chat. I will very quickly. I'm about to start the book reading. Lamau. Final chapter of book. As hegemon of Greece and assassination. Anyway, we'll allow Lancelot to hopefully not get too drunk, and stay safe and all that. But let's begin. With the battle won, Philip made no attempt. Hang on, let me there we go. With the battle won, Philip made no attempt to withdraw. He assembled his army and attended to the task of performing the rituals of a Greek warrior. The Macedonians collected their dead near a spot where Alexander's cavalry had destroyed the sacred band. They cremated the corpses along with their weapons and armor and buried the remains in a mound 23 feet high. Mute testimony to the scope of Philip's victory. A tumulus of this height could hardly have contained the remains of more than 100 or 200 soldiers. Ah, I see. A small price indeed for such a great victory. The Macedonian army paraded before the mound to honour their fallen comrades. Philip offered sacrifices to the god in thanksgiving for his victory, and later rewarded those troops who had distinguished themselves in battle. Afterward, Philip and his Macedonians sat in the plain of Chaeronea, an occupying army within a few days' march of Thebes and Athens. Wait, you have to be in a comfy place. Oh no, copyright. I hope you manage to find somewhere comfy soon. Ooh, range shooting. Very cool, clever. The aftermath of victory. Uh, all great battles are fought for political goals, the armies being but means to larger ends. It is the degree to which a battle allows the political objectives of the victor to be achieved, more than the successful exercise of military technique that permits history to define a battle as great. Chaeronea was as great a battle precisely because it allowed Philip to finally achieve his most important political and strategic objective of unifying Greek under Macedonian hegemony. It is impossible to imagine Greek history from this time forward without Philip's victory at Chaeronea. I believe from this point on, right up really until I think well, actually no, I think the Greeks may have won independence at a couple of times, but I think up until this point, really, the kings of Macedonia were incredibly strong until the Romans came and defeated them. So I think and hope it'll be. I'm sure knives will also be involved. Philip's appreciation of the political context of his victory was evident in the vastly different ways in which he treated Athens and Thebes. To allay Athenian fears regarding his intentions, Philip sent decades, one of the Athenian prisoners, to Athens to inform its assembly that Philip intended Athens no harm. Out of respect for the Athenian dead, Philip gave the bodies of the slain for burial, had them cremated, and had an honor guard led by Alexander, Antipater, and Allimachus carry their ashes to Athens. Philip also freed all Athenian prisoners of war, without ransom. Hammond observes that such a tribute to a country defeated in war was unparalleled then, and is still unparalleled still. The Athenians were so relieved that they raised a statue to Philip in the Agora. Philip's treatment of Thebes stands in marked contrast to his treatment of Athens. He allowed the Theban dead to rot in the sun for several days, repeatedly denying Theban requests to recover their slain. When Philip finally allowed them to do so, he charged ransom not only for the Theban prisoners but for the corpses as well. Philip, perhaps because of their bravery or their reputation as the best soldiers in Philip treated the dead of the sacred band with more respect. Their bodies were gathered, laid out, and buried in 7 rows. Otherwise, Philip treated the Thebes and its soldiers with undisguised contempt, as befitted a treacherous ally that had broken the solemn oaths of treaty. Macedonia was now the preeminent power in Greece, and Philip intended to use that power to realize 2 strategic goals. He intended to impose a security regime on Greece that would guarantee Macedonian power for the foreseeable future and for his heirs. Further, he sought to establish the necessary conditions to carry out a successful invasion of Persia, which Isocrates had urged him up years before as a way of unifying Greece. Isocrates felt the propensity of the Greek states to war with each other would be reduced if they engaged in a common effort to gain access to new lands and resources that would alleviate the chronic poverty that afflicted much of Greece. No attempt to invade Persia could succeed, however, if the Greek states led a revolt against Macedonian power or formed alliances with each other, or with Persia without Philip, while Philip was away on campaign. Philip not only required the manpower of Greece to succeed against Persia, he also needed to ensure that the states would not attack one another or himself while he was away. Philip understood that many of the conflicts between the Greek states were rooted in a genuine security and economic interests, and no institutional arrangement establishing a new security regime for Greece could hold for long unless it was based on a concrete recognition and accommodation of these interests. After Chaeronea, Philip set out to turn Greece into a quiescent ally by imposing Macedonian solutions to the security problems that concerned the major Greek states, and by enforcing them with a bilateral and common agreements backed by the power of the Macedonian army. In the weeks following Chaeronea, Philip began establishing the new order by concluding bilateral agreements with the major Greek states. The new arrangements with Athens and Thebes were central to Philip's plan. An alliance with Athens had long been one of Philip's strategic objectives. Initially, Athens was Philip's primary means of balancing Theban power in central Greece. After Chaeronea, Philip wanted Athens in his camp for a more important reason. Philip needed the Athenian navy to control the sea after he landed in Asia, to prevent the Persian navy's inevitable counterattack. Philip did not want the disruption of Persia at his back, invading Greece and encouraging the Greek states to revolt. Athens would also serve as the major logistic base for the invasion. Philip's respectful treatment of the Athenian dead at Chaeronea was designed to convince Athens that its future lay in alliance with Macedonia, and to abandon its anti-Macedonian sentiment. Philip proposed a treaty of alliance and friendship in which he promised not to attack Athens or interfere with its domestic constitutional system. There were to be no purges of his political enemies. Indeed, Demosthenes, the leader of the anti-Macedonian faction and Philip's chief political enemy for more than a decade, was permitted to deliver the funeral oration over the Athenian dead. Philip promised Athens its independence and did not impose any Macedonian garrison on it or its territory. Athens was required, however, to call its settlers home from the Chersonese and Thrace, thus ceding the settlements there to Philip, and to cancel its military alliances with these dependencies. More importantly, though, Philip permitted Athens to maintain its large navy and retain control of Lemnos, Samos, Demlos, and other islands where its naval bases lay. The treaty even prohibited any Macedonian trireme from entering the harbour at Piraeus. Piraeus is the harbour town, essentially, that lay a little bit away from Athens. It was their main harbour. Many battles were fought around there, especially during the Peloponnesian War, trying to take control of it. Where were we? Oh yes. As a result of these concessions, the Athenian navy continued to be the strongest navy in the Aegean, which, of course, was precisely what Philip needed it to be, so it could protect his invasion force from the Persian fleet. On balance, then, Athens was treated generously. Later, it even entered the League of Corinth and resumed its participation in the religious affairs at Delphi. Even Demosthenes had to admit that Athens was now best served in alliance with Philip. These terms sound like they could easily be broken. Potentially, but you have to remember that I imagine alongside this, I imagine that Philip probably took maybe he took a few hostages. Free men, not hostages in the sense of like they were bound and gagged, but they were just to stay in Macedonia. Honored guests turned hostages should things go wrong. But in terms like this, obviously what Philip is hoping for is that they see that he's a fair ruler. He isn't going to try and subsume them within his empire fully. He will allow them to continue to be Athens, to run their own domestic policies. But he expects them to act within his interests and support him in his campaigns. And I think probably the idea and the recognition that Philip had managed to unify Greece and was going to be the first Greek to be able to invade Persia totally may have helped them. And of course, his actions here with Chaeronea would certainly have not indebted them, but predisposed them to working with him. Even here, as it was said that Demosthenes believed that it was best for them to be in alliance. Closely related to the settlement with Athens was the agreement Philip imposed on Euboea. The island was a key communications route between northern and central Greece, and had great strategic value for both Athens and Philip. Philip dissolved the alliance that Athens had forged with the Euboean League in 341 BC to resist Philip's encroachments there. Under the leadership of Philip's partisans, the League was reconstituted without Athens. So yeah, he is cutting down and kind of separating Athens from other allies too. The strategic city of Chalcis technically remained independent, but Philip installed a Macedonian garrison in the city to ensure its loyalty. Philip now controlled the closest island to Athens, from which, should the need arise, Macedonian troops could quickly intervene in Athenian affairs. It was a development not lost on the Athenians. So yeah, there's still, at all times, there's always this threat of violence, this threat of force that Philip could call upon them. And I think, depending on how he treats Thebes, we may see, kind of what happens. Unlike Athens, Philip had no interest in preserving Theban power. Not only had Thebes betrayed its alliance with Philip, but with Athens now firmly in the Macedonian camp, Thebes was also the only major power left in central Greece. Philip set about to reduce its authority and religious influence permanently. Justin tells us that, quote, some of the chief men of their city too he put to death. Others he banished, seizing upon the property of them all. Pro-Macedonian politicians who had been exiled were recalled and reinstated. From these exiles, Philip created a jury of 300 to hold public trials of Theban officials. He replaced the democratic constitution with an oligarchic arrangement in which key posts were given to Philip's partisans. Philip also forced Thebes to surrender the key frontier towns of Oropus and to Athens, and Nicaea was returned to Locris, and a Macedonian garrison was installed in the Cadmeae, the Acropolis of Thebes. The Boeotian League continued to exist, but changes in its constitution greatly reduced Theban influence in its affairs. Orchomenus, Plataea, Thespiae, all formerly destroyed by Thebes, were rebuilt with Boeotian help and financing. They were also made members of the League as Philip's allies, so that they could act as a check on Thebes. Thebes was also required to relinquish any land that it had seized from Boeotian cities, and was forbidden to participate in the Amphictyony. The remaining issue in Philip's new security arrangements in central Greece was what to do with Phocis. I might just check if there's any interesting notes for this, because I actually forgot to check any of the notes for the past couple of chapters. Oh, hello. Excuse me, I wasn't. How do you pronounce that? Migul. I'm just gonna call you Gabrielle, because that seems to be what the actual name is. Howdy, happy drunk midget fighting day. Yes, that seems to be the way many people take Patrick's Day to be. But welcome in. Thank you very much for the first time chat. Name pronunciation, well, my name, and you also redeemed Laura, so I'll give you a quick little introduction. My name is Ruadh. I'm a half-human, half-Tuatha warrior scholar of the Fianna, an ancient war band that existed in ages long past, more mythical age, more magical age. It's very nice to meet you. I mainly, as I'm doing right now, do reading streams in a kind of ASMR style. I also do the odd karaoke or what have you. So I thank you very much. I come from Potato Grandma Olga server. Olga is one of my favorite VTubers. She's fantastic. I love watching her. Just how creative, and how the amount of effort that she must have put into all her redeems, she's the quintessential effort and quality streamer. And her ESL warms my heart. Just her Russian accent and the way she talks is just great. But you're very much welcome. I hope you don't mind just a soft kind of relaxing reading of we're currently reading about Philip II of Macedon, who was Alexander the Great's father. We're almost at the very end of the book, and spoiler alert, Philip doesn't make it. Philip, you need to stop. Your diplomacy is too good. Your army is too strong. Your wife too bad. They'll kill you. I know, clever. It's gonna be too much. I'm gonna be real. I've been gone since I said that, but this is by far the most fascinating answer you could have given. How did the half-human part happen? Because my father, Quilta Macaronean, was a human of the Fianna. My mother, they never married, and they planned to be lovers to marry, but events separate them. But Skatnev was my mother. I grew up my first couple of years within the two lands of the Tuatha, underneath the mounds, the Sheed mounds, before leaving to find my father and the Fianna band and get in there. Fellow bastards. It has been believed since Roman times that the monument of the Lion of Chaeronea marks the spot where Philip arranged and buried the corpses of the Theban band. It is believed that the Thebans later erected the monument itself, but no inscription tells us who erected it. Plutarch, a native of Chaeronea, tells us nothing about it. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oh no, did I lose the page? Ah, here we are. The jewelry, the Boeotian League. Oh yes, the remaining issue in Philip's new security arrangements in central Greece was what to do with Phocis. Philip's idea was to rebuild Phocis so that it could act as a check on Theban power and serve as a buffer between Boeotia and Thessaly. To this end, he revoked the harsh penalties the Amphictyonic League imposed after the Sacred War and allowed the reconcentration of its population into the cities. The fine was also reduced to 10 talents a year, and the rebuilding of its towns and cities, an indication of Phocis' sovereignty, began immediately. Phocis' political partisans took advantage of Philip's lenient treatment, and many were elected to public office, consolidating their hold on the government. The reduction of Thebes, the weakening of the Boeotian League, the alliance with Athens, the installation of the Macedonian garrison at key points, the rebuilding of Phocis and Macedonia's preeminent position on the Amphictyonic Council, all strengthened Philip's political, diplomatic, and military control of central Greece. The groundwork for dealing with the other Greek states had been laid by a decade of Macedonian propaganda designed to win the goodwill of the Greeks. The result of this effort, and Philip's adroit handling of the friends he had established over the years, was now put to good use. So remember, ages ago it was talked about how Philip was very generous with his friends from all over Greece. With the exception of Sparta, almost every state of some importance had within it a group of pro-Macedonian partisans who could be relied on either out of conviction or self-interest to support Philip's ambitions. In state after state, these partisans were either installed by Philip or elected. Once in office, they acted in typically Greek fashion and brought their enemies to book by confiscation, exile, and execution. In this way, Philip was able to enforce the new security arrangements with the support of friendly domestic regimes. At the same time, he escaped blame for the revenge that the factions typically took out on one another. The states of the northern Peloponnese, Megara, Corinth, and the Achaean League had all been members of the Athenian coalition opposing Philip, but individually they were too small to mount significant opposition to his plans for the Peloponnesus. Corinth was the most important because of its considerable strategic value as the region's traditional gatekeeper. With news of Philip's victory at Chaeronea reached Corinth, the city prepared for a siege. But when Philip's army approached, Corinth surrendered without a fight, possibly because of a domestic revolution led by Philip's political partisans within the city. With his Macedonian friends already in control, no penalties were imposed on the city except that the actual Corinth was garrisoned by Macedonian troops. Megara too saw a change in government, with pro-Macedonian partisans carrying the day, and the city quickly surrendered to Philip. The Achaean League also surrendered without resistance, but was still allowed to exist. The League also formally ceded the city of Naupactus, which Parmenio had captured a few months earlier, and turned it over to the Aetolians, its new rulers. Philip now turned his attention to Sparta, the most powerful state in the Peloponnesus. Sparta had not joined the Athenian League or taken any hostile action against Philip, yet Philip could hardly have permitted Sparta to maintain its position in the region if he were going to impose a common peace on Greece. To do so might invite the Persians to try and entice Sparta against Philip once he had left for Asia and precipitated a revolt at his back. Sparta and its neighbours were constantly in conflict because Sparta needed access to the outside world, and the fertile lands on its border to feed its people. Sparta's enemies in the struggle for access to the land and the mountain passes were the border town of Argos, Arcadia, and Messene. They used to control all of these areas. Well, not all of them, but they were kind of like under their influence back during the Peloponnesian War. Immediately after the victory of Chaeronea, the three towns approached Philip and sought his support for their claims against Sparta. After settling events in the Corinth, Philip marched into Argos, the home of his ancestors, and now governed by Philip's partisans. Philip took up the cause of his ancestral home and offered to negotiate a solution with Sparta. When Sparta refused, I believe this might be the supposed time that Philip sent a letter to the Spartans, claiming that if he was to conquer their lands, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was a long message anyway. And the Spartans replied with if, typical laconic response, and then they got the shit kicked out of them by Philip. Philip marched into Laconia with the Macedonian army in autumn in 338 BC, and laid the region waste. The Spartans were also deprived of their border territories. Philip did not, however, attempt to destroy the Spartan state. His objective was to weaken Sparta relative to its smaller neighbours and prevent its dominance of the region. He succeeded. To the west, Philip had long had his eyes on Ambracia as the key to controlling Macedonia's southwestern border. Ambracia, or Ambracia, a wedge of land between Epirus, Aetolia, and Acarnania, offered Macedonia an outlet to the Ionian Sea. In 342, the Ionian Sea is the sea I am Phalanx Man 410,757,864,530 dead Spartans. Sounds about right. That's you know what? That's like the average Chinese war. Some random guy stepped on another king's foot and like 50 million people die in China. Excuse me. In 342 BC, Philip had moved towards taking the city during his larger campaign against Epirus, but he had to withdraw when the Athenians and Corinthians sent troops to protect the city's liberty. After Chaeronea, Philip's pro-Macedonian partisans either seized the city or elected to control it, and they surrendered to Philip without resistance. Philip installed a garrison, and his political enemies were driven off to take refuge in Athens. That's surprising that he would allow that. But I guess he did agree not to interfere in their domestic policies. Macedonia's southwestern border was now secure to the Ionian Sea. Philip used this series of bilateral agreements with the individual city-states to construct a new balance of power and security regimes in the different regions of Greece that were important to Macedonian security, and Philip's plans to invade Persia. He took great pains to avoid the bloodletting that had often accompanied the victories of Greek states in the past. To be sure, his partisans in various states often reduced to the usual cruelties that accompanied changes of regimes in Greek states, but at least the blood was not on Philip's hands. Judged by the standards of city-state warfare in the past, Philip's treatment of his enemies were genuine, generous, humane and moderate, and conciliatory. Justin says Philip managed his conquest that none might think of him as a conqueror. It was strategically brilliant how Philip defined and imposed a new security arrangement on the Greek states. By creating new balances of powers in the various regions, the major powers in each region, Athens, Sparta, and Thebes, were hemmed in by coalitions of smaller states that were backed by the power of the Macedonian army. Philip had, in effect, created a new security status quo for the Greek states. The problem he faced now was how to ensure that it endured. In late 338 BC, Philip issued more an order than an invitation for the city-states to send representatives to a conference at Corinth. Here we go, the League of Corinth. The choice of Corinth was highly symbolic, for it had been there in 380 BC that the Greek states came together to form the coalition, the Common Alliance, to resist Xerxes' invasion. Philip intended to accomplish something unknown in Greek experience, to convene a meeting of enemies and friends alike, to consider the victors' proposals and to plan their own futures. Philip wanted to guarantee the new security regime through a series of institutional arrangements that formalized and regulated the states' behaviors in their dealing with one another. He wanted to prevent a return to the frequent civil wars that Plato said were everyone's lifelong companion in Greece. Philip aimed to propose a common peace for all Greece. Justin tells us that Philip was courteous to the delegates and listened intently to their concerns, and there was wide agreement that they should end the revolutionary strife and warfare that plagued Greece. Only Sparta refused to attend, asserting what was imposed by a conqueror was not peace but servitude. It was agreed that a general framework to protect the peace should be created, and that a governing common council should be formed in which each state was represented according to its military and naval power and size, i.e. a form of proportional representation. The council was to have wide military, financial, and judicial power, and its decisions were binding and not subject to veto by the member states. In foreign policy, the council could declare war, conscript forces, and banish or punish offending member states. Later, a permanent administrative structure was inaugurated to call and preside over meetings, and to oversee the implementation of the council's decisions on a regular basis. The delegates returned to their states over the winter to consult with their political establishments and consider the outline of Philip's proposal. In the spring of 337 BC, the delegates returned to Corinth for another meeting and voted to approve Philip's plan. Interestingly, one of the first decisions the council made was to confirm the new status quo arrangements that Philip had already imposed, legitimizing the imposition of the Macedonian garrison in Ambracia, Thebes, Chalcis, and Acrocorinth, and the redrawing of the new frontiers in favor of the smaller states around Sparta. At a later meeting in the summer, the council also established an alliance of itself, its member states, and Macedonia, quote, for all time. The council then authorized the creation of a common armed force drawn from each member's military forces in proportionate number to enforce its edicts. Philip was elected as hegemon, and his powers were specified in the agreements with Philip. In this way, Philip imposed a common peace on Greece, creating a community of Greeks, or what modern scholars came to call the League of Corinth. Philip's plans, they're nice to see it all come to fruition, isn't it? In many, many impressive ways. The League was not limited to the former belligerents, but also open to new states that agreed to abide by its laws. Thus, the specific obligations that the League members undertook are of interest because they indicate the legal means through which Philip would govern Greece as a single community for the first time in history. These commitments also prohibited the behavior that commonly caused domestic revolutions and stasis, and conflicts between the states. The obligations of the member states were as follows. No state was to be compelled to join the common peace against its will. All were to abide by the treaties, presumably the ones Philip had already imposed on various states. All were to respect each other's liberty, autonomy, and territorial integrity. None were to make war against each other unless one of the signatories violated a clause of the agreement. None were to interfere with the shipping of another signatory or force their ships into ports other than their destination, i.e. piracy. All were to abide by the resolutions of the Council of Plenipotentiary Representatives of the signatory states. I don't know what that word means. I think I do, maybe a little bit. All were to carry out the hegemon's orders. None were to give asylum to political exiles or to assist them against the government of their homelands. All were to respect all the constitutions in existence at the time of the pact signing, with the exception of those of tyrannies. None were to redistribute landed property, cancel debts, or free slaves. None were to pass laws inflicting punishment by death, or exile, or confiscation of property for offences that until then had carried a lighter penalty. None were to commit hostile acts against Philip or his heirs. All were to cooperate in suppressing any violation of the pact and in punishing the offenders. The positions and powers of the hegemon were central to the success of Philip's new political order. Philip was not a signatory of the pact, but a guarantor of the peace itself, of which the council and its obligations were but a part. Essentially, you could probably think of Philip more as the Leviathan, the Leviathan of Thomas Hobbes' state, maybe. As hegemon, Philip was also strategos autokrator, or commander-in-chief with full powers, who could call up the League's forces to use against any member state that violated his obligations, or to meet any foreign threat. If need be, Philip could also use the Macedonian army in any manner he chose on his own authority. Philip took great care to always act under the council's authority, but the obligation of the signatories not to commit hostile acts against Philip or his heirs essentially made it illegal, and even a cause of war for a member state to oppose Philip. Paradoxically, Philip also had fostered the very union of states that Athens had sought and failed to organize against him, and there was little risk now that the new community of Greeks might turn against him. The ultimate guarantee of Philip's control of the new order was, of course, the Macedonian army. It is reasonable to say that Philip produced a community of Greeks, to koinin ton Hellenon, by making the various people and polities live within a collective constitutional order with common laws and obligations, supported by effective administration and enforcement mechanisms, including the means to defend itself from internal and external threats. Federal leagues of city-states had been attempted before in Greece, but none with the scope of Philip's League of Corinth. Philip as hegemon provided the political leadership of a new order, and his plans to undertake a common effort against Persia provided both a purpose and a future for it. Philip's ambitions had transformed the Macedonian Empire and a plethora of warring Greek states into the first national state in the history of Europe. The new state was organized on a federal model of decentralized authority. Although obligated to observe common federal or national commitments, the individual states were free to organize themselves politically along democratic or oligarchic lines, to maintain their own customs, deities, and language, to write their own local laws, to raise and maintain their own armies, and to impose their own taxes. Each was as self-governing and independent as it had been before, with the exception that it could not make war on another state with impunity. There's a note here, a long one. A common critique of Philip's success is that it came at the price of the liberty of Greek states. And this is from Cockwell. And given the horrors that the free states perpetuated against each other and their own citizens, and that many of them were oligarchies to begin with, it is difficult to see how Philip putting an end to these practices amounting to depriving them of their liberty. It is similar to arguing that the American Civil War and depriving the southern states of their practice of slavery and open rebellion somehow made them less free. Even with the federal obligation to provide military forces for the common defense varied in the number and kind, infantry, cavalry, naval vessels from state to state. The new Greek national state was very similar to the federal nation that emerged in the United States following the Civil War of 1860 and 65. The experience of that war led the government to place limits on the power of the individual states to treat their citizens arbitrarily, and the states cannot use force against the central government or other good state governments to achieve political ends. I have this marked here. This paragraph. I have this whole paragraph line, so I wonder why. Out of the cauldron of civic violence, there began to emerge a new sense of national identity and nationhood, both American and Greek self-awareness of being a nation, of being one people with a common fate, developed out of the common experience of civil war that produced a new political order. That sense of being one people allowed each Greek state and its citizens to contribute their values, experiences, traditions, resources, and talents to a new national identity and psyche. It was not until Philip's reign that a common sentiment of what it meant to be a Hellen reached all Greeks. Alexander took this culture of Hellenism with him to Asia, but it was Philip, as leader of the Greeks, who created it, and in doing so made the Hellenistic age possible. In the autumn of 337 BC, the council was again called into session to hear Philip's proposal to invade Persia and punish the Persians for the acts of sacrilege they had committed against Greek sanctuaries. Philip had been technically at war with the Persians since the siege of Perinthus in 340 BC, when Persia had sent supplies to Perinthus and the military forces into Thrace. The council authorized Philip to make preparations for the invasion. In the spring of 336 BC, Philip sent an advanced expeditionary force of 10,000 Macedonian troops under the command of 3 generals, Parmenio, Attalus, and Amyntas, into Asia Minor. Landing at Ephesus, the Macedonians were welcomed as liberators and marched up country, freeing some Greek cities from Persian subjugation as they went. At Magnesia, the Macedonians were met by the Persians under the command of the Greek mercenary Memnon, and suffered some sort of reversal that halted their advance for the time being. Nonetheless, the expedition had established a breachhead for the follow-on force, which Philip intended to lead in the late summer. In the spring of 336 BC, Philip consulted the Delphic oracle about the Persian campaign. He asked the Pythian priestess whether he would conquer the king of the Persians. The oracle's response was, "Garlanded is the bull, fulfillment is here. One there is who will strike the victim." Encouraged, Philip prepared to take his army against the Persians. A year earlier, in the spring of 337 BC, Philip acquired another wife, a Macedonian woman named Cleopatra, the ward of a powerful baron named Attalus. While some sources attribute Philip's marriage to so young a woman, she was perhaps only 22 years old, as the folly of a middle-aged man. In fact, Philip had sound reasons for marrying Cleopatra. First, she was of childbearing age. Philip knew that if he and Alexander were killed during the Persian campaign, Macedonia might well come apart in a civil war over the succession, unless a legitimate heir, even a child, could claim the assembly's loyalty. Second, Cleopatra was a Macedonian, unlike all but one of Philip's other wives. An heir of Macedonian lineage could more easily lay claim to the assembly's support in the event of Philip's and Alexander's deaths. Philip was hardly the type to lose his head over a woman, and his marriage to Cleopatra made good sense. After the wedding feast, the males gathered in a typical Macedonian drinking bout. At some point, Attalus, Cleopatra's guardian, raised a toast to the king and his new wife, adding that now Macedonia might have a legitimate heir. Alexander took the comment as a smear on his own legitimacy and hurled a drinking cup at Attalus, calling on Philip to reprimand him. The drunken Philip took Attalus's side in the quarrel and ordered Alexander to apologize. Alexander refused. Philip drew his sword and moved in Alexander's direction, only to stumble and fall to the floor. In a rage, Alexander left the room. The next day he collected his mother and left the court. Olympias went to Epirus, and Alexander set off, quote, going among the Illyrians. I can already see the unfortunate situation. Upon sober reflections, Philip realized the damage he had done, and moved to reconcile with Olympias and Alexander, who in due course returned to Pella. Justin says that Olympias tried to persuade her brother, Alexander, the king of Epirus, to declare war on Philip, and Alexander may have been trying to raise support among the Illyrians for a similar venture, perhaps to counter any such threat. Ooh, there's a map here of the Macedonian Empire. I won't say what the very end of it says, but let me take a very quick photo so we all have a nice image just to appreciate what Philip did. I think it's always good to do that. Oh, I am. Hang on a moment. Let me just set this up. Also, I just realized, I forgot to turn off ads. So anyone who, I think it was okay though, because I think Clever, I think you didn't get them because you're subscribed, because you're cool. Yeah, I just realized they were coming to the end when I looked up to take the photo. But let me just very quickly. upload this image. And I'll just have it ready to go to pull up when we reach a certain point. It's just an image of the Empire. But I'll bring it in. Perhaps to counter any such threat, Philip arranged for his and Olympias' daughter, who was also named Cleopatra, to marry Alexander of Epirus. In July 336 BC, the wedding was held in Aegae. The day after the marriage ceremony, Philip was to preside over athletic games. The grand procession was to take place beforehand in the theatre of the Aegae. The procession began at sunrise with statues of the 12 Olympian gods carried into the theatre. A statue of Philip was carried in close behind. Then, according to Diodorus, came Alexander the heir and Alexander of Epirus walking ahead of Philip. Quote, Philip himself entered, wearing a white cloak. He ordered his bodyguards to follow, removed at some distance from him, as an indication to everyone that he had no need of protection of guards. Such was the degree of preeminence that he had attained. When Philip reached the center of the theatre, he stopped and faced the cheering crowd. Suddenly, a figure rushed forward and stabbed Philip in the chest, driving the blow right through the ribs, and laid him out prostrate and lifeless. Philip's blood stained his white cloak red. The king's bodyguards rushed to his side, but it was too late. Philip died almost immediately. The assassin sprinted for the gates to the horses he had made ready for his escape, with the bodyguards Leonatus, Perdiccas, and Attalus in pursuit. The assassin, Diodorus notes, had a head start in the pursuit and would have succeeded in mounting his horse before they could stop him, had he not entangled his sandal in a vine and fallen. As he was getting off the ground, Perdiccas and those with him seized him, ran him through, and killed him. Such was the end of Philip. Such was the end of Philip, who in the course of reign of 24 years had been the greatest of the kings of Europe of his day. And let's just pull up a small image here just to... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm gonna just pull this up so we can all admire what he had accomplished. Sparta being just free is always funny to me. And you have to remember that the Epirus was essentially also, an ally of them at the time as well. So really, they, it expanded in effect all over central Greece, or all over Greece and this entire region. Yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that he began his reign under Amyntas the Fourth, the child king, hemmed in on all sides by invading barbarians and Thessalians and Athenians and the Chalcidius League, that he was able to do this and conquer and establish the first true peace of Greece and lay the foundations for his son to become known as the Great. One must respect his ability and his statesmanship. Who killed Philip? Our sources for Philip's assassination are generally poor because none of them could have known whether anyone else was involved in this scheme. All the sources do agree on the assassin's identity. It was Pausanias of Orestes, a canton of Upper Macedonia. Pausanias was able to get close enough to strike Philip down because Pausanias had recently been appointed one of Philip's bodyguards. It's always those closest. 38. The original sources for the assassination of Aristotle, Diodorus, and Justin. Okay. There's a long note here at 52, so I'll keep that in mind. It is unlikely, however, that Pausanias was one of the seven senior trusted. Was one of the seven senior trusted Somatophyleces, who usually protected Philip. More likely, Pausanias was one of the Dorphori of the royal Hypaspes, an elite unit of 1,000 men called the Royal Hypaspes Guard. Since the entire unit could not have been present that day, it is probable that only a few selected guards were present. One of them, Pausanias. Diodorus tells us that Philip himself had promoted Pausanias to a more honorable position among the guards. Thus Philip had put his own assassin in position to kill him. Why did Pausanias kill Philip? According to all three sources, the motive was personal anger and revenge because Philip allowed him to be outrageously treated by Attalus and company. Diodorus and Justin tells us that the outrage involved Pausanias' rape by Attalus and his cronies, who then turned Pausanias over to the muleteers for further abuse. When Pausanias was a page, Philip had been attracted to him because of his good looks, and they had engaged in a homosexual affair. After some time, Philip was attracted to another page, with the same name, and abandoned Pausanias for his new lover. The assassin was angry at being jilted, and began to torment his new lover, calling him an effeminate who was willing to submit to the erotic advances of anyone who desired to initiate them. That is, i.e., a male prostitute. The second Pausanias complained to his friend Attalus. Wait, hang on, there's this. The second Pausanias. I know. Let me quickly reread that because I'm confused why it says the second, unless I misread something. Oh, yeah, sorry. Was attracted to another page with the same name and abandoned Pausanias for his new lover, and began to torment him. The second Pausanias complained to his friend Attalus and threatened to commit suicide. Supposedly, he did so later in a battle against Pluralus of the Illyrians by stepping in front of Philip and, quote, submitting his own body to all the blows aimed at the king. For some reason, Attalus decided to avenge the young man's death. He lured the first Pausanias to his house, where after filling him with vast quantities of unmixed wine, he handed his body over to a stableman to abuse sexually and drunken rape. Pausanias was enraged at the assault and appealed to his former lover Philip to punish Attalus. While Philip was angry at the enormity of the crime, he refused to punish Attalus because of his kinship. Attalus had adopted Cleopatra, Philip's new wife, and was therefore Philip's father-in-law, and his present needs for his services. Philip had already chosen Attalus to command the advance expedition to Persia. Philip tried to appease Pausanias, however, by conferring on him valuable gifts and promoted him to a more honorable position among the bodyguards. Yep, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Aristotle tells us that the attack on Philip by Pausanias took place because he allowed him to be outraged by Attalus and his henchmen. Seething with anger, Pausanias killed Philip for not punishing Attalus and avenging him. An important question in determining Pausanias' motives is, when did the abuse at the hands of Attalus take place? Historian E. Badian's view that it took place 8 years after the killing cannot be accepted, or before the killing cannot be accepted. Badian's dating is based on the time of the Illyrian War, when the insulted Pausanias supposedly committed suicide by exposing himself needlessly in battle. It is difficult to believe that Pausanias' act of vengeful anger occurred some 8 years after the event. Diodorus' account of Pausanias' suicide suggests it happens during a war with Pluralus the Illyrian, but there is no evidence of this war. Diodorus may have confused Plerius with Pluratus, whom Philip had fought in 345 BC. The most logical interpretation of Diodorus is that Pausanias was raped not long before Philip's murder. Philip married Cleopatra in the spring of 337 BC, making Attalus his king, and Attalus left for Asia in the spring of 336 BC. It was perhaps sometime during that year that Pausanias was raped, and perhaps only a few months or even weeks before Attalus departed. The timing would account for the rawness of Pausanias' rage. Immediately following the assassination, the Macedons from the Aegae and the surrounding regions were summoned to the assembly under arms to elect a new king. Antipater presented Alexander to the assembly, which then elected Alexander as the new king. A group of leading Macedons donned their armor and escorted Alexander to the palace. Alexander was suspicious of the circumstances surrounding Philip's death. Diodorus tells us that there was more than one horse waiting at the gates for Pausanias. This detail implied that there may have been a second assassin waiting to kill Philip, or more ominously, to kill Alexander as well, and exterminate the entire royal house in a single blow. Alexander was supposed to have entered the arena next to Philip, but Philip had changed plans and sent him on ahead. If there was another assassin who did not have opportunity to strike, he was still out there. Alexander ordered an inquiry into the murder. And there's a long note here. Let me have a read of it. Hammond at the end of Philip, in Philip and Macedon, Hatapolus and Leucopolis present the widely accepted version of the murder. Justin 9.6, however, says that Philip was not out front, and struck down in full view of the assembled crowd. Instead, he was walking between the two Alexanders in a narrow passage, where Pausanias killed him as he was going through it. If Justin is correct, it is unlikely that there is a second assassin, since the second assassin would probably have been close enough to slay Philip's son Alexander at that time. So, That Pausanias killed Philip is beyond doubt. Whether the assassination was part of a larger conspiracy has intrigued historians ever since. The usual suspects in any conspiracy to kill Philip are Olympias, Alexander, some or all of the sons of Eropus of Lycetes, Amyntas, and the Persian king Darius. By examining the case for each and against each alleged conspirator, it is possible to come to some sort of reasonable conclusion as to whom, if anyone, may have been behind Philip's murder. A few weeks after the murder, the assembly met in its constitutional role as jury in cases of treason. After due deliberation, the jury found all those around Philip that day innocent. Suspicion fell upon the sons of Eropus, however. The men were either heirs to the Lycetian royal house, or lesser members of the Argead royal house of Philip. Two of the three sons of Eropus, Hermenes and Arrhabaeus, were accused, found guilty, and executed. The third son, Alexandros Lycetis, Antipater's son-in-law, was found innocent, swore loyalty to the new king, and was permitted to live. We know nothing about the ambitions of the Lycestian royal house at that time. Whatever these men's ambitions, they had little to gain by killing Philip when he might more likely die in Asia by battle. If they desired to replace Philip on the throne or to raise a rebellion against him, it might have been easier to accomplish that before Philip had left for Asia. Another suspect was Amyntas, the son of King Perdiccas III and Philip's nephew, whom Philip had displaced as heir when the assembly elected him king 23 years earlier. Amyntas was a respected member of the royal family, married to Philip's daughter Cynae, and demonstrated no discernible political ambitions. If Philip and Alexander were killed in Asia, however, Amyntas would likely have become king and as the last surviving son of King Perdiccas. Why then not wait to see if both survived the war? Amyntas was surely astute enough to understand that murdering Philip risked destabilizing the entire Macedonian state and provoking a revolt in Greece as well. Amyntas had nothing to gain by murdering Philip. Olympias, Philip's wife, became the most frequently mentioned suspect by later Roman and Greek historians. Their belief that she was involved in Philip's murder stemmed from the traditional and terribly warped Greek and Roman views of monarchy. Macedonians and barbarians, the role of women per se, and the misunderstanding of the practice of polygamy in the Macedonian royal house. Olympias could hardly have been motivated by jealousy after being married to a man who had 6 other wives already. Moreover, any new son born of Philip's recent marriage to Cleopatra could not threaten Alexander's claim as heir, and no evidence suggests that Philip ever changed his mind about having Alexander succeed him. There was no apparent challenge to Olympias' position as mother of the next king. Except for her son, she was isolated at court, however, and would have had few allies to protect her if any involvement in Philip's murder became known. Olympias had no significant motive to kill Philip, and every reason for him to live. The same is true for Alexander. Despite his jealousy of his father's achievements and sometimes violent arguments between the two, Alexander had every reason to believe that he would succeed Philip. Moreover, Alexander was hardly beloved of Philip's barons, particularly Parmenio and Attalus. It might be surmised Attalus also had an interest in Philip's death, for if Cleopatra's son was named an infant king, Attalus would be named regent as the child's blood relative. If Alexander was known to have been involved in the king's murder, some barons likely would have moved quickly against him out of loyalty and vengeance for the killing of their Homeric chief. If Alexander wanted his father dead, he had a better chance of seeing him killed in battle, or even killing Philip himself in the midst of battle. One historian has suggested that Philip had decided that Alexander would not accompany him to Asia. Instead, he was to stay behind as regent of Macedonia and deputy hegemon of the League. If true, Philip's decision, along with having appointing Attalus commander of the advance force, may have convinced Alexander that his father intended to deprive him of chance for military glory. It is certainly plausible that Philip may have reckoned that it was unwise to risk both his life and that of his heir on the grounds that if both were killed, the Macedonian Empire would disintegrate. While the possibility is plausible, no evidence in the sources support it. We do not know whether Philip intended to leave Alexander behind. If he did, however, there was still a good chance that Philip might be killed and Alexander made king simply by staying in Macedonia. In her excellent work on Philip's murder, Elizabeth Kearney suggests that too little attention has been paid to the timing and place of the murder. Regarding the question is not who benefited from Philip's death, so much as who suffered if he lived. Philip was killed in July, before tasking command of the invasion force and leading it into Asia. It is a sound inference, then, that whoever killed Philip either wanted to stop the invasion, or conversely was completely indifferent to the impact of the king's death on the planned invasion. One important fact is that Philip was killed in a public place. This point suggests that whoever wanted him dead did not have that private access to him. Otherwise, the murder could have been more easily accomplished and with a greater chance of escaping detection. Olympias, Alexander, and Amyntas, as members of the royal family, all had easy access to Philip in more private and secure settings. Any one of them could have killed him even as he slept. To kill Philip in a public place made no sense for any of these possible conspirators. Finally, Pausanias had horses waiting for him to use in his escape. This planned getaway suggests Pausanias was no martyr to insanity or ideology, but someone who wanted to kill Philip and live. But where would he escape? Where in Greece could Pausanias hope to find sanctuary from Macedonian vengeance? These observations raise doubts about a conspiracy carried out by the usual suspects, and points instead to an assassination organized or encouraged from outside Macedonia. The most likely suspect is Darius, the Persian king. It might seem a little bit underwhelming. I know everyone loves a good drama series with some big revelation, but to me it seems like the most likely one. A note here. Kearney expected scholars have not taken seriously the idea that Persia was involved in Philip's murder. Oh, this is a quick note. The threat of a Macedonian invasion was of great concern to Persia, whose diplomatic problems had seriously weakened its ability to resist its domestic problems. Two of its satraps in Egypt and Babylon were in open revolt, and the royal house was in shambles. In 338 BC, Bagoas, a court eunuch, killed King Artaxerxes and his two older sons, and put the young son Aerses on the throne. 2 years later, Bagoas killed Aerses and all his children. What? What is this guy doing? Bagoas next selected Darius Codamanus a collateral member of the royal family, and installed him on the throne. Darius then killed Bagoas. Darius came to the throne probably in April or May of 336 BC, while Philip's advance expedition was in Asia. The grave concern with which Darius viewed Philip's ambitions can be inferred from one of his first acts after coming to power. He ordered his satraps to make contact with Demosthenes and offer him money to, quote, detain the Macedonian from invading Persia by causing trouble in Greece. When this plan failed, Darius may have turned to assassination. From Darius' perspective, murdering Philip had several things to recommend it. First, if Philip's debt did not stop the invasion, then it would at least postpone it for a time, as it indeed did. Darius needed time to settle his domestic problems and consolidate his hold on power. Second, Philip's debt might touch off a dynastic dispute within Macedonia, in which Alexander might lose. Philip's debt did in fact result in a purge of powerful Macedonian nobles, including Attalus, Parmenio, the Lycestian royal house, and even members of the royal family itself, Amyntas, Cleopatra, and her baby. Unfortunately for Darius, however, Alexander emerged the winner. Third, Philip's debt might encourage the revolt of the Greek city-states. Thebes did revolt, causing Alexander to destroy the city and postpone the invasion again. Finally, with Macedonia and Persia already at war, the beauty of a Persian conspiracy to murder Philip was that Persia risked nothing in the attempt. If Persia had sufficient reason to kill Philip, did it have the means to do so? Here again, the answer is yes. The first problem is that in a successful assassination is gaining general access to the target in order to determine a specific time and place to strike. Persia had open access to Philip's court. Persian influence in the Macedonian court reached back 2 centuries when Macedonia had been a Persian vassal state. Contacts between Macedonian nobles, the royal families, and intermarriages with Persian princes and nobles were common. A number of Persian nobles with their entourages took up residence in Philip's court for years at a time. Philip's court adopted various features of the Persian court, including a royal chancellery, a court nobility recruited partly from foreigners, including, of course, Persians, an elite corps of battle guards, personal bodyguards, royal pages, and even a royal harem. The loyalty of the Persians at the Macedonian court should have been suspect from the beginning. These people also served as sources of information about goings-on in Macedonia, including no doubt knowledge of Pausanias' rape and anger. No one in Macedonia would have found it strange that Persia might try to assassinate Philip. It was commonly believed throughout Greece that Jason of Pherae had been murdered with Persian complicity in 370 BC. Just as Philip had, Jason had publicly announced his intention to lead Greeks against Persia. A political murder orchestrated from afar requires knowing specifically when and where the target might be accessible to the assassin. Paradoxically, Philip himself provided this critical information to his killers. Philip announced the date and planned the ceremonies that would accompany his daughter's wedding months in advance. In a break with Macedonian tradition, Philip invited envoys from the Greek states, delegates from the Balkan dependencies, friends from abroad, including Persian friends, as well as important Macedonians to the wedding. This information provided Persian agents with an opportunity to reach their target, albeit in a public place, under cover of being members of an entourage of some visiting Persian wedding guest. Or the Persians may have already had someone in place in the Macedonian court to recruit Pausanias as the assassin. Recruiting an assassin is no easy task, but in the case of Pausanias, circumstances may have made it somewhat easier. What happened to Pausanias was no secret, and undoubtedly became the subject of court gossip, jokes, and derision. Pausanias was socially isolated and an object of ridicule. It would not have been difficult for a Persian agent to befriend him, offer his sympathy, became his confidant, and feed the outrage with the legend that Philip was to blame for what had happened to him. At some point the subject of revenge would have been raised. And here Pausanias' new friend could offer him something no one else could, namely a sanctuary to which he could flee and live out the rest of his life in safety and honor in the Persian court. A Persian agent may even have provided the horses for Pausanias' escape. Pausanias was the perfect tool, and already psychologically disposed against the target, with the ability to get close enough to strike the lethal blow. A good argument can be made that the Persians had stronger motives than any of the other suspects for wanting Persia dead, or Philip dead. The public place and timing of the murder also point to Persia more than Alexander, Olympias, or anyone else in Macedonia. Philip's assassination did, in fact, succeed in delaying the invasion, provoking a dynastic struggle and stimulating a revolt in Greece. In this sense, whoever killed Philip achieved all the goals that Persia would have set for itself if it had intended to murder Philip. Within a year, however, it was clear that Alexander had succeeded his father and planned on carrying the invasion. Darius has reacted to the renewed threat by offering 300 talents to support a Greek revolt against Macedonia that would keep Alexander in Greece and out of Asia. It seems like it didn't work. They probably saw what happened to Thebes, a long city, probably one of the most oldest, and it didn't go well for them. Darius may also have attempted yet another assassination plot, set yet another assassination plot in motion, this time with Alexander as his target. In 335 BC, Amyntas was charged with treason, found guilty, and executed. Plutarch suggests that other discontented Macedonians also plotted against Alexander. One of Amyntas's close friends, this is Amyntas the Fourth, by the way, also named Amyntas, the son of Antichos, fled to Persia to escape the same fate as his namesake. According to Arrian, he had established communications between the Persian king and Alexandros Lycetes, the surviving brother of the two Lycestian men, who had been executed for complicity in Philip's death almost immediately after the murder. In the winter of 334 BC, Darius sent an agent, Sesines by name, to offer the Macedonian throne to Alexandros if he would kill Alexander. Sesines was captured and the plot revealed. Alexandros was immediately removed from his important post as commander of the Thessalian cavalry, and in 333 BC he was arrested for treason and executed. Alexander himself accused the Persians of being involved in his father's murder. Arrian says that in a letter to Darius, Alexander charged the Persian king with Philip's murder, saying, quote, "My father was killed by assassins whom, as you openly boasted in your letters, you yourself hired to commit the crime." Some scholars dismiss Alexander's letter as self-justifying propaganda on the grounds that Philip himself was involved in a conspiracy, and perhaps so, for the evidence for any conspiracy is largely circumstantial, and no suspect can be entirely excluded. There is, of course, however, a much stronger case for the Persian instigation of Philip's murder than can be assembled for Alexander. Perhaps it does not matter who killed Philip. What matters is that one of the greatest generals, statesmen, tacticians, and strategists of antiquity was no more. Greater than Alexander. This book claims that Philip of Macedonia was the greatest general in Greece, invites the question of whether Philip was greater than Alexander. Alexander's exploits were recorded early on by ancient historians, so that even in ancient times he had already become the great romantic warrior hero for kings and generals to emulate. The theme of Alexander's greatness survived the ages almost unchallenged, arriving in modern times largely intact. One consequence was to neglect Philip's contributions to Alexander's accomplishments, and to assess Philip's own accomplishments as they compared with Alexander's. It had been commonplace for Alexander's supporters to assert, usually in passing, that Alexander's inheritance from Philip was important, without examining that inheritance in detail. In fact, Philip's legacy was so significant that without it, there would have been no Alexander the Great. Alexander's opportunity for greatness began with a single truth. Philip was a great national king who fashioned the first national territorial state in Europe, uniting the disparate peoples under Macedonian leadership into a powerful national political entity. Philip enlarged, urbanized, and developed Macedonia's natural and human resources to a degree never seen before in Greece or anywhere in the West. In doing so, Philip made Macedonia the wealthiest and most resource-rich state in Greece. With Macedonia as his national power base, Philip expanded his sphere of political and military dominance into the first great European land empire in history, uniting all of Greece into a single political entity with common political institutions and a single constitution. It was Philip's wealth and imperial state that provided the material resources, ships, food, troops, reserve manpower, military equipment, money, and animals that made Alexander's successful assault on the western half of the Persian Empire possible. The composition of the expeditionary force that Alexander took to Persia amply illustrates the extensive resources that Philip's new imperial state had provided. Alexander's army included 12,000 Macedonian infantry, phalanx and guard brigades, 7,000 Greek hoplites drawn from the League of Corinth's troops, 7,000 troops from the subject tribes, including light cavalry, peltasts, javelrymen, 1,000 archers, and Agrianian mounted javelineers, and 5,000 heavy infantry mercenaries. He had an additional 11,000 or so troops already in Ionia, as the advance expeditionary force sent under the joint command of Attalus and Parmenio. Alexander also took with him 1,800 Macedonian cavalry, including the elite Campanian cavalry, 1,800 Thessalian heavy cavalry, 900 Thracian and Paeonian scouts, and 600 League cavalry, in addition to the 1,000 cavalry already in the country under the advance expedition. Alexander's force amounted to 49,100 men. Usually not mentioned, but surely present, were Philip's siege engineers and sappers. Philip's establishment of the Macedonian Empire made raising such a large number of troops and equipment possible. Let me see if there's any the basic original sources for Alexander are Diodorus, Plutarch, Justin, and Arrian, with Arrian's records being the most valuable and complete. Raising and deploying such a large force were achievements themselves. Sustaining this force's manpower levels in the field was quite another. Alexander's campaigns lasted for a decade and covered 10,000 miles of marching and fighting. His army would have been worn to helplessness without some sort of manpower replacement. While it is true that Alexander made some use of Persian and tribal troops, he did so only minimally. Most of Alexander's replacements during the decade of war came from Macedonia, sent by Antipater, who had been left behind as regent. Often these troops' replacements exceeded 10,000 men at a time, and in one instance, 19,000. Philip had introduced a system of nationwide recruitment and training of Macedonian militia troops that made it possible to provide large number of trained and disciplined soldiers to Alexander on a regular basis. No other Greek state, other than Macedonia, had such a large and comprehensive system of military recruitment and training, and none could have sustained Alexander's army in the field for so long. It is often overlooked that wars and campaigns took place within a political context. Thus, they require more than armies, troops, and equipment. Alexander's campaigns against Persia would not have been possible had Philip not at first established a civic peace among the Greek warring states. More than anything, Philip's peace and its accompanying guarantee that the Greek states would observe their obligations to the League enabled Alexander to lead an attack on Persia. I will note that Antipater had to regularly deal with little revolts and stuff during his time as regent of Macedonia. Without the guarantee of peace among the Greek states, no commander would dare risk invading Persia while exposing himself to revolt or an attack in his rear. Without Athenian assurances that its navy would oppose any Persian attempt to attack Greece by sea while Alexander was in the field, Alexander's expedition risked being cut off and destroyed piecemeal. Even the crossing itself depended on Philip's previous success. Alexander crossed into Asia at the Hellespont. He could only do so because Philip had previously secured Thrace and the Chersonese in a year-long military campaign and built the strategic platform from which Alexander could launch his invasion. The strategic vision of taking a Greek army into Asia and conquering the great king of Persia was far more Philip's than Alexander's. The idea had been around for a decade-long time, espoused by men such as Isocrates as a way of stopping Greek civil strife and bringing the warring states together in a common effort against Persia. At best, the idea was less than fully formed, and the political conditions necessary to make an invasion feasible was absent until Philip developed them. It was only after he had done the groundwork that a war against Persia became possible, with some expectation of success. Philip made the idea strategically conceivable and planned the invasion in detail. Alexander carried out the invasion, but it was his predecessor, Philip, who transformed thought into action and first gave practical expression to the strategic vision itself. It is not too strong a statement to say that Philip was a military genius who invented the military instrument that allowed Alexander to carry out his conquest of Asia. Philip's innovations not only revolutionized the Greek way of war, but also led to more powerful combat capabilities without which Philip's own conquests, and Alexander's and Asia's, would not have been possible. Philip's new form of infantry warfare, constructed around a new combat formation, the pike phalanx, armed with a new weapon, the sarissa, and capable of greater flexibility, stability, and maneuver than the hoplite phalanx, bequeathed to Alexander his main combat arm for controlling the infantry battlefield. Philip's new phalanx could be employed in numerous ways, in the defense to offset the numerical superiority of the Persian Empire, in the offense to strike at the Persian lines with sufficient force to penetrate it, and as a platform to maneuver the anchor the battle line and freeze enemy dispositions, while the Macedonian cavalry sought a weak spot through which it could penetrate and turn inside the Persian lines. Philip introduced the long pike, introduction of the long pike also afforded his infantry a great advantage in close combat over the Persian infantry, who was armed mostly with a short spear, shield, bow, and little armour, and was far less formidable than the Greek heavy infantry. Philip also revolutionized the killing capability of Greek cavalry. Until Philip, cavalry in Greece had been only a minor combat element with little killing power, incapable of offensive action, limited in the pursuit, and unable to break infantry formations. Philip enhanced its lethality by replacing the short cavalry javelin with a long Xyston lance, which was designed for close combat, and introducing the cavalry wedge to drive through the infantry formations. Philip taught the Macedonian cavalry to fight as units instead of individual combatants, and trained them in close combat and horsemanship to a level heretofore unseen in Greece. Unlike traditional Greek cavalry, Philip's cavalry was designed to close with the enemy, shatter its formations, and kill it where it stood. If the enemy took flight, Macedonian cavalry was expert in lethal pursuit, hunting the enemy in small groups and striking it down with lance and saber. Philip's cavalry innovations transformed Greek cavalry from an impotent combat arm into the Macedonian army's combat arm of decision. It was the Macedonian cavalry's deadliness in close combat that made Alexander's cavalry so effective against both the Persian infantry and cavalry. The Persians, meanwhile, used their cavalry mostly in the traditional manner, riding close to the enemy and throwing javelins, and lacked any ability for effective close combat. Again and again Alexander used his cavalry to close the distance with the enemy and bring its destructive power to bear upon his adversaries in close combat. If Alexander had been equipped with traditional Greek cavalry, Alexander's main combat arm against the Persians would have been practically useless. Philip's military genius in devising and introducing a new infantry and cavalry formations, expanding their tactical roles and increasing exponentially their combat killing power, developed the great military instrument that gave Alexander the advantage in battle and propelled him to victory. Robert Gable sums up this dominance in the following terms. Except for numbers, Alexander always had superior fighting ability at his disposal, so that a significant military asymmetry existed between his forces and those of his enemies. Most of this superiority resulted from the inherent qualities of the Macedonian army and was based on discipline, training, arms skill, and professionalism, and cultural outlook, all of which had been enhanced by experience. Had Philip not invented a masterful new army, the odds are very good that there would have been no Alexander the Great. Another innovation that bolstered Alexander's future success was Philip's integration of an engineering and siege capability for the first time in the Greek field army. Philip's siege engineers had almost 2 decades of field experience before Alexander took them to Asia, and their new Macedonian torsion catapult gave Alexander's army the capability to batter down city walls. Polyeidos, Philip's chief engineer, trained Alexander's chief engineer, Diades. The siege corps itself had been trained to a fine edge by Philip, who employed them in at least 11 sieges in his campaigns. The importance of a siege capability to Alexander's success cannot be overstated. Before Alexander could invade the interior to meet the Persian army, he first had to secure his hold on the Persian coast and not leave hostile garrisons across his lines of communication. Alexander had to quickly reduce the major coastal cities to avoid being caught from behind by the Persian army, which almost happened at the Battle of Issus. But Philip's besiegers reduced Miletus, Halicarnassus, Tyre, and Gaza in relatively short order. Had Alexander been forced to rely on the old Greek siege practice of isolation and starvation, it is likely that he would not have gone much beyond the coast, giving the Persian army plenty of time to attack him. The results would have been far different from what history records. Alexander's far-flung campaigns also depended on another of Philip's major innovations, the Commissariat Corps. Philip introduced the science of logistics to Philip's armies, allowing his armies to march long distances and sustain themselves in the fields for months on end. By Alexander's reign, Philip's logisticians had been at work for 2 decades. These logistics officers, trained by Philip, supported Alexander's long projection of force and found the means to supply the army over some of the most hostile terrain on the planet. To be sure, the Persians were exemplary logisticians themselves and had an excellent system of interior roads that aided Alexander. But once Alexander moved eastwards over deserts and mountains and through jungles, he depended heavily on his own Macedonian logistic officers, whom Philip had trained to supply his army. There is no doubt that Philip was a brilliant tactician in his own right. Like Napoleon, Alexander was gifted with a coup d'oeil, or intuition, that permitted him to quickly assess the terrain and weakness of the enemy's disposition and to fashion a tactical plan on the spot. His tactics, however, were not radically different from those he had learned from Philip. In Alexander's early battles, the Persians' advantage in numbers presented a risk of a single or double envelopment of Alexander's formations. Accordingly, Alexander countered the threat with a swift penetration of the enemy lines, turning inward towards the enemy commander's position while assaulting the interior ranks as he advanced. The key to successfully breaking the Persian line was the ability of Alexander's cavalry to close with the enemy at the Schwerpunkt, engaging in violent close combat until it drove through the line and exploded behind it. The infantry, always deployed in the center left of the line across from the enemy commander's position, was used primarily as a platform of maneuver. That is, it held the enemy infantry in check, while the Campanian cavalry, always deployed on the right under Alexander's personal command, maneuvered until it found the weak spot in the enemy line through which to attack. To weaken the enemy cavalry's resistance to his cavalry assault, Alexander employed mounted skirmishers in front of his cavalry to engage the enemy and force it to throw its javelins and to expend its energy into defense. Alexander then attacked with the fresh Macedonian cavalry. It was Philip who first used his infantry as a platform maneuver while unleashing his cavalry to break through the enemy lines. Hello, Daya. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you very much. We're just finishing off the reading of our book. As we have seen, Philip originally used this tactic in his battle with Bardyllis, and then again at Chaeronea. Philip was also adept at reading the terrain and adjusting his forces accordingly, as he did at the Battle of Livadi, Illyria, and the Crocus Field, and Chaeronea. It is by no means clear that Philip was inferior in this talent to Alexander. The tale of Alexander's pursuit of Darius, one of the most widely told battle stories of antiquity, demonstrates Alexander's use of strategic pursuit in his campaigns. But here again, Alexander followed Philip's example. Philip first made strategic pursuit possible by introducing a logistics system that sustained his forces in the field over long distances. Philip used this offensive operation not only to destroy fleeing enemy armies, but also to achieve political ends as well. Philip often conducted lethal pursuits, with the political objective of eliminating as much of the enemy's leadership corps and aristocracy as possible, to make it easier for the survivors to come to terms with him. Alexander did the same thing in hunting down Darius, but later he harried and annihilated the leadership of opposing tribal armies, almost to the point of genocide. The invention and effective use of strategic pursuit within the context of Greek warfare must be credited to Philip. By Alexander's day, it was a stock element of the Macedonian commander's tactical repertoire. Alexander is often given credit for innovatively assembling units of mixed arms for use on specific missions. Arrian identifies 27 examples of Alexander's combining forces of different arms for specific tactical missions. Later, Alexander redesigned the Macedonian phalanx, mixing Persian with Macedonian pikemen to make it heavier. Just as modern-day planners do, Alexander tailored tactical units to the terrain over which they had to operate, the mission they were to accomplish, and the nature of the force to be engaged. Alexander used the light force of mounted infantry, for example, to close the gap in overtaking Darius. While Alexander certainly utilized mixed arms units more often and on a greater scale than Philip did, he did so probably because of the varied nature of both Persian and tribal armies that Alexander fought. Many of Arrian's examples apply to the counterinsurgency operations that Alexander mounted in Afghanistan and the Indus Valley, where his opponents were highly mobile units armed with bows and javelins. While traditional Greek armies had utilized specialty units of archers, slingers, peltasts, javelineers, and so on for decades, albeit in minor roles, it was not until Philip's command that such units were regularly incorporated into a standing military force, the Macedonian army. Moreover, Philip's wars in the mountains of western Macedonia and the Balkans forced him to deal with a highly mobile tribal forces operating in difficult terrain. During the Thracian campaign, however, Philip seemed to have used mixed forces with some regularity and size, so much so that as the campaign went on he found himself short of regular infantry and had to request replacements from Macedonia. Great generals are not the only causes of their greatness. War is a cooperative enterprise, heavily dependent on the talents and abilities of others, and orchestrated by the commander into a coherent whole of activity. The quality of leadership and experience is vitally important to all levels of command, and the overall success of any army. Perhaps it is in the qualities of leadership, training, and experience of the Macedonia army, officer, and non-commissioned officer corps that Alexander owes his greatest debt to Philip. Most of the important officers in Alexander's army had served with Philip at various levels of command over the years. They included Parmenio, the old war horse, who was Philip's best field commander, his sons, Philotas and Nicanor, commanding the horse and foot guards respectively, Hephaestion, Alexander's supposed lover, closest friend, and a commander of half the companion cavalry, Craterus, commander of the left half of the phalanx, Seleucus, commander of the foot guards, Antigonus the one-eyed, and Ptolemy, a fellow student with Alexander under Aristotle's tutelage. Many of these men would go on to become the successor kingdoms. Even Alexander's peers had seen their first combat under Philip, and had risen in rank under Philip's tutelage. Equally important were the unnamed and unremembered battalion commanders, squadron commanders, file commanders, and section leaders, the small unit officers and non-commissioned officer corps on which the effectiveness of the army depends most, who had served under Philip as well. Perhaps no general in history had ever acquired a better trained, experienced and well-led army than Alexander received as his legacy from Philip. Both Philip and Alexander were heads of state as well as field generals, a fact that radically changes the meaning of their military greatness. In modern times and even in later antiquity, generals are most often not simultaneously heads of government. Accordingly, they are judged properly only by their achievements on the battlefield, and not held responsible for larger political concerns. In these circumstances, military performance may be regarded as an end in itself. Alexander and Philip, however, must be judged by a different standard. That is, by the degree to which their military achievements worked to support their objectives as military men and as heads of state. Thus, military competence becomes not an end, but a means to other ends for which the general is also responsible. The concerns of the general qua general are the tactical and operational elements of war, while the concerns of the general qua statesman are the strategic objectives of the national state. For the general as strategist, war is but one means to achieve national objectives within the political and cultural context within which wars are fought for specified goals. Philip always saw war as a means to his strategic goals, and he preferred to achieve his objectives by other less kinetic means such as diplomacy. Even to a warrior as Homeric as Philip was, the search for glory and heroism had little place in his strategic thinking. Alexander, by contrast, was a prototypical Homeric warrior fighting for personal glory and reputation, a military adventurer almost entirely lacking in strategic vision. One is hard-pressed to discern in accounts of Alexander's adventures any strategic vision that he might have reasonably achieved in his many campaigns. Well, I would say he did. Well, I would say that, taking all of the Persian coast down to North Africa was definitely a properly strategic idea to make sure that he didn't leave anyone behind, but you would argue that was Philip's plan anyway. When the Indian philosopher Dandamus met Alexander, he seemed to have grasped Alexander's strategic mettle correctly when he asked, quote, "For what reason did Alexander make such a long journey hither? Some of Alexander's campaigns, such as the crossing of the Gedrosian desert, were undertaken simply to surpass other generals' achievements." That's actually one that I hate reading. Whenever I get to that point in history, any books about Alexander, I hate that moment because it is pure hubris from my perspective. Anyway, he's attempting to cross this desert, the Gedrosian desert, that another Persian emperor attempted to cross once and died and lost his entire army. Philip kills, I think, like a good third of his force. Philip kills like a good third of his force just to try and kind of prove that he was better than this emperor. And he does. He succeeds in crossing it. But still, the what moment? I just mentioned it there. Alexander crossing the, I think it's pronounced the Gedrosian desert. Thus, quote, Alexander chose it, we are told, because with the exception of Semiramis, returning from her conquests of India, no one had ever brought an army successfully through it. The Persian king, Cyrus the Great, supposedly had lost all but 7 of his men when he crossed it. Alexander knew about these stories, and they had inspired him to emulate and hopefully surpass Cyrus and Semiramis. With only personal glory and reputation to concern him, Alexander became a fierce and recklessly brave warrior who was wounded 7 times. Well, 7 main times. I'm sure it was multiple times. I think I have some delay on my phone. Fair. No worries. He apparently had little regard for his personal safety, and even less for the consequences of his death for either Macedonia or the Argead dynastic lines. He seems to have had possessed some sort of recklessness, or restless, almost irrational desire for glory unchecked by a larger political sense. That is, by strategic calculation or vision. For Alexander, war was the crucible of fame, and an end in itself and its exploits the stuff of history and legend. His reputation era. Exactly. Philip, by contrast, was the ultimate strategist. He resorted to fighting wars only when other means failed to achieve his objectives, which were rooted in Macedonian national interests more than in enhancing his personal reputation. When at war, Philip showed himself to be an innovative and brave commander who was wounded no more than 5 times, 3 of which were life-threatening. But Philip was the first Western general to abandon the Homeric practice of fighting in the front ranks of the battle line. He designed his army to maneuver and strike at his command. To control the flow and tempo of battle, Philip had to command from outside the battle space. He would probably have agreed with Scipio Africanus. Scipio Africanus was the man who basically saved the Roman Empire against Carthage in the second Roman-Carthage wars. Who, when criticized for moving around the battlefield, surrounded by guards with shields to protect him, responded, quote, "My mother bore me a general, not a warrior." Generals were becoming too valuable to be risked in foolish heroics. Philip had already moved beyond the general as a warrior hero to the general as battle manager. Alexander, in doing the opposite, was already an anarchism in Greece and would be soon everywhere else as well. Alexander was a magnificent throwback to a simpler age of warfare. The future, however, belonged to men like Philip. And that comes the end of our reading on Richard A. Gabriel's Philip II of Macedonia, greater than Alexander. Ooh, that was a lot of reading. My throat is very dry. Give me a moment to go get some water. I'll go over here. Oh, I filled up my bottle of water and just took a minute or two to let my voice relax. But thank you very much, Daya, for the hydrate redeem. I'll take another sip. And thank you, Lancelot, for the stretch redeem. There we go. Oh, that was nice to read. That was nice to finish off this stream. Hello, Alcanor. Hello, hello. Welcome in. It's been a little while since I've seen you. I hope you've been very, very well. Although it may already be the following day for you, just 15 minutes ago. Happy St. Patrick's Day, Ruadh. Thank you very much, Alcanor. I had a nice little time just going to a little parade and seeing all the little communities and events and stuff that was put on. Everyone was in green or were already very drunk. I had a few drinks myself, but not too much. I had like 2. But people seem to be having fun, so. But I would always say St. Patrick's Day, especially on a bank holiday weekend, is not the place you want to be in town on a night out. That is probably when it can get very, very messy. Because some people will have been drinking for hours, start of the day, all the way up to God knows what time. Did you do anything for St. Patrick's Day? Was there any festival or parade that you went to for at Alcanor or Alcuinor? And it's nice to see you again, by the way. Thank you for dropping by. We actually just finished our reading of Richard A. Gabriel's Philip II of Macedonia, greater than Alexander. I will be. I spent yesterday actually making up playlists of all of my reading streams, and I'm going to try and be a little bit more on top of that. So they're VODs on my YouTube channel. I'll post it later and link to it on my Twitter. I am a little bit annoyed though because I realized that for some of the books that I read, there are parts missing. So I think it's maybe 2 parts in some areas, which is very annoying. So I might have to redo those parts. I'll see, I guess. Lovely night, but very busy. I can imagine Lancelot. It can just get a little bit messy. I feel like if you're getting in home around this time, it might be okay. I feel like if you stayed out any bit longer, you're in danger of things. No event, but I'll be having corned beef and cabbage very soon to celebrate. See, that's the thing. That's not even a thing over here in Ireland. It actually, that might be a surprise to you, but yeah. I know. Wait, no, it's sorry. Is it corned beef? That's like the big American thing. Isn't that where that comes from? Patrick's Day. Yeah, like we'll have like a normal like Sunday dinner or something. But corned beef and cabbage is specifically an American, like Irish American thing. I'm pretty certain it originated among the Irish immigrants there. But it definitely got more it's definitely a thing that's an American aspect of St. Patrick's Day. But has its roots in Irish heritage, so that's fine. You know, I won't blame you guys for that. I believe what it was that the meat that they used, the beef and corn and you know cabbage, that they were fairly cheap, so that's what the immigrants went for, because most of them were like, you know, laborers and stuff, so they went with easily to produce. It's kind of like what happened with the pumpkins. I'm pretty sure the pumpkin for Halloween, Samhain, came from America as well. Again, Irish immigrants adapting to a new area used pumpkins instead of what was traditionally used as turnips. Pumpkins, of course, were a lot easier to use than turnips. uh, because of the you know how soft they were and how you know they happened to really fit for carving faces into them. But yeah, that might be a little bit of a surprise. I had no idea. This is crazy. It makes sense. I know. I imagine that like that's like it's like you're thinking back to all the times you've had it. It's like, oh, you're just like the Irish people. It's like, no, we don't do that over here. I'm sure there's probably a few that do because of influence from their American like relatives and stuff. But it's a funny thing. Hmm. I am a little bit eepy after after all that reading. I did about 30 pages in what the space of about a little bit over under 2 hours. No, I think it was actually like bang on 2 hours. Nice. So good pace there for the last chapter. I think. I'm disappointed I missed the reading, but I'm glad I was able to catch you before stream. And no, not at all, Alkinor. If you're able to catch me whenever, it's always appreciated. If you pop in even for like 2-3 minutes just to say hi. I sometimes do that with a lot of my not Oshis but stream friends, just to be like, hey, you know, I hope you have a good stream. And usually I like talk a little bit and then I have to head off. We're all busy people, but hope you've been having a nice time, and I don't know if you've been streaming yourself recently, but if you have been, I hope it's been going well. Because I think you were planning on streaming. I can't remember if I'm misremembering or not. I was going to. I considered doing something for Patrick's Day, but I was too lazy. I considered doing a little karaoke stream, just doing some Irish songs, but my voice does not feel up for it now. It feels very tired. Hmm. There's always next year. There is. That's true. That's true. There is always next year. I mean, I can sing Irish songs whenever I want to be honest. Like honestly, I could be on stream just randomly playing a game, and I could just start going like, Shadava Vandalen Vatu Bearcrack to Vein and the Duhira is a Merlock. Is a deal to Leshno Gaulim. Oro Shedava Awalya, Oro Shedava Awalya, Oro Shedava Awalya. Anisher Hoton Sauri. There's nothing stopping me. You can only do that on St. Patrick's Day. No, oh no, oh no! The St. Patrick's Day police are gonna come get me for singing Irish songs on a non Patrick's Day because it just passed over. They kick down the doors of all the bars and make sure that nothing Irish is going on all over the world past 12 o'clock, past midnight on St. Patrick's Day. It must suck for people who like they don't get it as a day off in their countries, because like it's a day that you're meant to go out and drink and get drunk, and it's like they have to all go out and work. I assume many of them probably take a sick day, or I wonder how many bosses get like a call in the morning. It's like, my head is killing me. It's like, okay, maybe it's a little bit easier these days with working from home, but also you know, if you're a labourer, you kind of just have to go in. I was certainly planning to do more streams, but one thing came after another, and I've been delayed. It's still on my to-do list. Do let me know. You should join my Discord if you're not already in there. I can't remember if you are or not. You should be able to find it on my Twitch thing. I do. I usually post like skebs, or I'll just randomly talk about stuff. There's a lot of art and stuff. It's nice. There's a lot of nice people in there. But there's a little self-promo channel, so whenever you do start streaming, you can throw your little link in there, and I'll try and pop along if I am available. Feel free to use that. What was I just saying? No, 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 not at all, not at all. Many of my friends, and even like just other VTubers that I like vaguely know that I've watched like 2 or 3 times, they all have self promo channels. I think it's a very good thing to do because VTubing is very much a collaborative thing, and I need to start doing more collabs. But it's this thing that like many of them do it like in a way where it's just there. It's a channel you can use. Like go ahead and use it. But I always make sure to ask. I always make sure to just shoot the person a question to be like, hey, is it okay if I use the self promo for my own like streams? I've never been rejected. I know some of them are a little bit more like don't push your Discord channel, which I guess makes sense. But it's nice that they allow you to use it in general. Hello, Renata. I am not your wife. Are you drunk? It is St. Patrick's Day after all. I'm not your wife. What are you talking about, silly? But welcome in, welcome in. I'm not going to be ending too soon, but I'm kind of just winding down now after our reading stream. But Slay. No, don't encourage her laughs a lot. You hate me. I don't hate you, Renata. I actually really enjoyed. Live your best life. Okay, that means no. You're encouraging her. She's gonna start calling me like wife and baby soon, and draw weird art of me. It's scary. But for those of you who may have missed, Renata and I, as well as Ace, Karen, and Patchy or Patchery, were. Oh, excuse me a moment. We're all we're all doing a collab together. It was very fun having Renata there and meeting her for the first time. She she would constantly throw in little. She saw a middle-aged man and went crazy. It was very entertaining. If you put a middle-aged man in front of Renata, you have to put her into like a Hannibal Lecter, like thing, like to hold her back, because otherwise that middle-aged man, he might get impregnated. Don't ask me how that works. It's just there's a very strong chance that may happen. This is my baby girl, my boy wife. Rua Quilta. I had male wife in my head. Yeah, do I have to be a boy wife, Renata? If I have to be that, can I at least be a male wife? I'll like, I'll cook. I'll bake some cookies. I'll make some cookies. I have the fire going. I'll make some nice cookies, and we can like be nice and warm. But let me take another drink of water because my voice is definitely a little, a little sore from that reading. Oh god, you guys probably heard of that. That was loud. But if you are looking for something that I thought anyway was very funny, I would highly recommend watching our Amnesia Memories collab on Ace P. Caswell's stream, or well, his VODs, I suppose. It was just like 6 hours of us laughing at Shin for being a weirdo and being like it was the path we were going down where like we were in love with him and he was like our boyfriend and stuff, but like every chance he got he just called us stupid and dumb, and he wouldn't tell us what his plans were. He was so mean and he lied all the time. It was really fun. It was very fun. I'm just trying to do like a little list in my head right now of what like either songs I could have done. I might just start doing random things because I feel like my brain just needs to switch off and I can just sing out. I might do the rest of the Oroche de Vahawalia, which is essentially a calling song, like a war song calling people to return to Ireland and help fight for freedom. Sheda Vahavan Berlin var du begrak du veien even da du hira Merlok. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. Is the deal to Leshno Daulu Oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya. Anishir hotan saurig. Hello, Demon, welcome in. We always enjoy to have you here. It's always a treat. Awilarina vaka vekam monamin bio ene yak shakten granja velages milgashkia. Eg fogert faun galuv. Oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya. Ahat anishe hotan saurig. I'm going to change to just chatting because I realize I'm not doing ASMR. And chatting. I'm going to update this. Wait, what's the... Oh, wait, hang on. There's one more verse. There's one more verse. Wait, no, that was... The Avwinari is the last verse. The second verse should have been... Hang on, I can't believe I have to look this up. I used to know this off by heart. Not in English, just give me the lyrics. I need like just a starting line and I'll be fine. Tagranya veleg chaktar salya olegar mage nagarda galius fenis ni frank the sponig. Is kohig ruiger galiv. Oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya, oro shedava hawalya. Is the deal? Is... Hang on, let me get that again. Anishe hoton sauri. There we go. I've been lurking for a while. You were a great background sound while I went for a run. Oh, nice one, nice one. Ooh, how long for a run did you go for the nice little jog? Sounds like a great way to wake up actually. Look at you being all fit. Isn't it a Monday? Wouldn't you be working? Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Who cares? Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed your run and enjoyed me being like a background noise. I feel like I could dance to the sickest jig in this jungle. This isn't a jungle, it's a forest. I wouldn't consider this a jungle. I feel like jungle has like Indian or like Amazon. Oh, jingle. Okay, I thought you meant like in the area that we were, it's like the sickest thing around. I thought that's what you meant. I didn't realize it said jingle. My bad. I'm a dummy. What's some other songs that come to mind? Hang on. Can't believe I'm like struggling to come up with stuff. If this had been like a couple of months earlier, I got into a big Irish song binge. Oh, you know, it's a great one that I think people might find quite funny. Have you guys ever heard of Sick Note? Sick Note. So it's a story of, well, it's basically a letter that an individual sent to his boss one day after having a little bit of an accident. So I hope you guys enjoy this because it's one of my favorite ones to actually sing in a bar because it always gets a great reaction. Dear sir, I write this note to you to tell you of me plight. And at the time of writing, I am not a pretty sight. Me body is all black and blue, me face a deathly grey. And I write this note to say, why Paddy's not at work today. While working on the 14th floor, some bricks I had to clear. Now to throw them down from such a height, 'twas not a good idea. The foreman wasn't very pleased, he being an awkward sod. He said I'd have to cart him down the ladders in me hod. Now, Clearing all these bricks by hand, it was so very slow. So I hoisted up a barrel and secured the rope below. But in me haste to do the job, I was too blind to see that a barrel full of building bricks was heavier than me. So when I untied the rope, the barrel fell like lead, and clinging tightly to the rope, I started up instead. Well, I shot up like a rocket, till to my dismay I found that halfway up I met the bloody barrel coming down. Well, the barrel broke me shoulder as to the ground it sped, and when I reached the top, I banged the pulley with me head. Well, I clung on tight, though numb with shock from this almighty blow, and the barrel spilled out half the bricks 14 floors below. Now, when these bricks had fallen from the barrel to the floor, I then outweighed the barrel, and so started down once more. Still clinging tightly to the rope, I sped towards the ground, and I landed on the broken bricks that were all scattered around. Well, I lay there groaning on the ground, I thought I'd passed the worst, when the barrel hit the pulley wheel and then the bottom burst. Well, a shower of bricks rained down on me, I hadn't got a hope, as I lay there moaning on the ground. I let go the bloody rope. The barrel then being heavier, it started down once more, and landed right across me as I lay upon the floor. Well, it broke 3 ribs and my left arm, and I can only say that I hope you'll understand why Paddy's not at work today. Oh. I always almost break at I let go of the bloody rope. Oh, it's such a good payoff. Over the fact that he has a hangover. Oh, certainly, I'm sure. The happy tune disguises the story. It's quite a nice little. It does have a nice little jaunt to it, and then it's like it's all these terrible things happening. A lovely song. Hello, Impeach. Oh wait, is that it? Impeach Claire. I'm gonna call you Claire. Claire, because that makes more sense to my brain rather than reading it every time. A lovely song. It is. It's often very fun to do. What's some other Irish songs I could do? The Whistling Gypsy, maybe. Whistling Gypsy. The Whistling Gypsy is quite a good one. Let's see if I can remember it. I'm not even gonna try and look up like karaoke's because I just don't even care at this point. I do not have the brain power to go searching. I'll just look up the lyrics and go. Hang on, my microphone almost fell. Gypsy Rover came over the hill, down through the valley so shady. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. Addy-doo, addy-doo, da-day. Addy-doo, addy-day-dee. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what the key is. She left her father's castle gates. She left her own fond lover. She left her servants and her state to follow the gypsy rover. Addy-doo, addy-doo, da-day. Addy-doo, addy-day-dee. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. Her father straddled up his fastest steed, roamed the valleys all over, sought his daughter at great speed, and the whistling gypsy rover. Ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-doo, da-day, ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-day-dee. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. He came at last to a mansion fine, down by the river Clady, and there was music and there was wine for the gypsy and his lady. Ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-doo, da-day, ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-day-dee. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. He is no gypsy, me father, she said, but lord of these lands all over, and I will stay till my dying day with me whistling gypsy rover. Ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-doo, da-day, ah-dee-doo, ah-dee-day-dee. He whistled and he sang till the green woods rang, and he won the heart of a lady. Kind of, the way I ended there was a little bit sad. It felt like it ended kind of ominously. What was that? I got like an ominous feel to my voice. I don't know what happened there. Thank you, Alcanor. Thank you. What's some other ones that are some good ones? I'm kind of just throwing out a couple of I know and come out black and tans, but that one's a little bit contentious. It is a little bit contentious, and it's a little bit overdone for my taste. I hear it very, not very often, but it's one that I hear. You know, it's the one that everyone seems to know. Hang on. Tell me, ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pulled my hair, they stole my comb, and that was right till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. That's it. Belle of Belfast City. This is a fun one. It's a shame that I just don't care about having the music, because it's way better when you have all the music playing and you have like 4 or 5 different people singing and you're all in a bar. It's better when you're actually in a pub environment. Tell me, ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the boys the boys won't leave the boys alone. What? The boys won't leave the girls alone. They pulled my hair, they stole my comb, but that's alright till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. She is a courtin' 1, 2, 3. Please won't you tell me who is she? Albert Mooney says he loves her, all the boys are fighting for her. Knock on the door and ring that bell. Oh, my true love, are you well? Here she comes as white as snow, rings on her fingers, bells on her toes. Old Johnny Mary says she'll die if she doesn't get the fella with the roving eye. Tell me, ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pulled my hair, they stole my comb, but that's alright till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. She is a courtin' 1, 2, 3. Please won't you tell me who is she? Let the winds blow high in the rain. No, hang on. This one's a little difficult. Let the winds blow high. Let the wind and the rain and the hail blow high, and the snow come tumbling from the sky. She is nice as apple pie, and she'll get her own boy by and by. When she gets a lad of her own, she won't tell her ma till she comes home. Let the boys stay as they will, for it's Albert Mooney she loves still. Tell me, ma, when I go home, the boys won't leave the girls alone. They pulled my hair, they stole my comb, but that's alright till I go home. She is handsome, she is pretty, she is the belle of Belfast City. She is a courtin' 1, 2, 3. Please won't you tell me who is she? And then it repeats the verse, but I already kind of went out of breath there. A lot of songs are very quick, and there's no one that's more considered kind of quick than the Rocky Road to Dublin. And this is one that probably many people would know because I think it was on. I think it was in like not Shamrock. I believe it was in. Who's the detective guy again? Why am I suddenly blanking on one like the most well-known detective of all time? Sherlock. That's it. That's why I was thinking of Shamrock. Sherlock Holmes. I think it was in some movie or some show with him. But the Rocky Road to Dublin is a deadly song to sing. The only person who I've ever heard who's been able to do it perfectly is Luke Kelly of the Dubliners. Probably the greatest or one of the greatest Irish voices that has ever been birthed. I will attempt to do it. A few verses anyway. Hello, Haru. Hello. I'm currently just. I finished the book reading Drown Check. Thank you very much, Haru. Thank you very much. And now I'm just kind of doing a cappella, just singing a bunch of random Irish songs because it's like St. Patrick's Day, and I don't know. I guess it fits. I'm sort of. I was winding down from the stream, but now I'm gonna go for a little bit. I don't know how well my a cappella sounds without the Irish music and the fun music behind it to go, but we'll see. Well, in the merry month of May, now from me home I started, left the girls in tomb, nearly broken hearted, saluted father dear, kissed me darling mother, drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears a smothered, and off the wreath of corn, leave where I was born, caught a stout black torn, the banished ghosts and gums, a brand new pair of brogues, a rattle over the bogs, frighten all the dogs on the rocky road, a Dublin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways a Dublin whack for da. In Mullingar the night I rested limbs so weary, started by daylight next morning light and airy, took a drop of the pure to keep me heart from shrinking, that's the paddy's cure whenever he's off for drinking, to hear the lassie smile, laughing all the while, at me curious style to set your heart a bumley, asked me was I heard, wages I required till I was almost tired, on the rocky road to Dublin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare. Okay, I'm already out of breath. That's so difficult. I don't know when you're meant to take breaths in this song. I'm giving up. I gave up. I give up. You win. Yep. There's a lot of other songs that are really great, but a lot of them are like gotta max out lung capacity. I gotta like breathe really deeply at the start and then go crazy. Whoa, that was a lot of clicking. I don't know if you guys heard that. I don't know what caused that. That was like in my neck, or I think in my like shoulder. Ugh, that was weird. I didn't like that at all. I just saw I'm just seeing on YouTube there a live Dublin St. Patrick's Day parade. Unless they're doing it at like midnight, I don't know what they're talking about with this ad. It must be a repeat. Oh, this isn't even okay. Oh, there's a lot of great songs. Okay, I'm definitely gonna do a non-Jim Croce karaoke soon because there's a couple of songs I really would be down to do, such as "Blood on the Risers." I don't know if you guys have ever. "Blood on the Risers" is kind of like a black humor song about paratroopers. It's about a paratrooper doing his first proper jump and dying. It's pretty dark. Well, it's not dark, but it's like, you know, that's kind of the feel, but it's like the kind of stuff that they would totally sing for each other. But it has like it's kind of like deeper. It's like, he was just a rookie trooper and he surely shook with fright. He checked off his equipment and made sure his pack was tight. He had to sit and listen to those awful engines roar, and you ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more. Oh, that one. Oh, do you know this one, D? It's really good. It's really good. I don't know. I feel like I'm getting down deep enough for like where I want to be in that song. But I don't know how good projection wise it is. Another one I'd be down to do, be down to do. Excuse me, apologies. Is Men of Harlock. Men of Harlock. I imagine your first VTube cover song to be something like this. Yeah. Even though I tend to be a fan of I like my favorite musician is on the higher end, but not like the high end. He's like kind of on the high end of my range anyway. He's Jim Croce. So it's all the songs that are like like Speedball Tucker, all the ones I was doing during my karaoke streams. Which I know my voice isn't super suited for, although I feel like I'm getting a little bit more comfortable up there. Like in kind of the hang on. I just need I need to hear it. Or wait, how would it go? It would go I drive a broke down rig on Maypop tires, 40 foot of overload. A lot of people say that I'm crazy because I don't know how to take it slow. I got a broomstick on the throttle, I gotta rope it up and held right down. Non-stop back to Dallas, popping them West Coast turnarounds. And they call me Speedball, Speedball Tucker, terror of the highway. And all them other truckers will tell you that the boy is mad to be driving in a rig like that. So kind of like that range. I don't know if I'm hitting it properly, but kind of like that height is. I like that sound, but I don't know if my voice is suited up there. But I could definitely do like Blood on the Risers or something. That could be fun. Or else Men of Harlock is quite a good one. If you guys have ever seen the movie Zulu, it's like tongues of fire of Idris blaring, news of foemen near declaring, to heroic deeds of daring call you Harlock men. Groans of wounded peasants dying, wails of wives and children flying, for the distant succor crying, call you Harlock men. Shall the voice of wailing now be unavailing? You to rouse who never yet in battle's hour were failing. This our answer, crowds downpouring, swift as winter torrents roaring. Not in vain the voice imploring calls on Harlock men. Ah, that it's just got that song. The version that I'm thinking of is sung in a choir, so they have like high versions and low voices, and I like particular areas of it. How long have I been streaming for? I just realized I've probably been going for a little bit, haven't I? Yeah, almost 3 hours. Just 50 minutes to go, but I think I might finish up because I'm getting a little bit eepy now. Not too eepy. I slept in a little bit today. I did have to be up a little bit though, just to get into the into something anyway. Who will we raid into? Who to raid? Oh, ooh. Ooh, will we do anti-gravity? Oh, she's doing singing. Okay, that kind of leads in quite nicely. So yeah, I think that's a good person to raid into. Okay, let me very quickly try and figure out. So I'll go raid. Gravity. Okay. So I liked your singing and chatting. Thank you for it, and take care for now, Alkinor. Thank you very much for showing up, Alkinor. It was lovely to see you again, and thank you always for showing up, D. Always nice to have you. Again, I'm gonna try and raid, or not raid, stream price and time earlier because I feel like a lot of people, I feel like maybe it would be good to have a couple of varying times for people to catch. So maybe sometime in the middle of tomorrow, especially because I have tomorrow off, so that'll be lovely. And a nice short week where I'll have yeah, hopefully it's gonna be nice anyway. But thank you all for coming along. I don't know when we'll start a new book. I might do a little bit of other stuff. We love a short week, we really, really do. But thank you all for coming. Gerev Mila Mahagut and Slán go Fóill.